You might find this hard to believe, but many men don't lose their vitality because of age itself. They lose it because of neglect. It's not the birthdays that take your strength away. It's the quiet habits you've abandoned, the ones you thought no longer mattered. And the most overlooked of them all is the one society told you to give up decades ago: self-pleasure. I know this strikes a nerve, because countless men over 60 have sat across from me whispering the same fears they could never say at the dinner table: that their mornings feel emptier, that their confidence is fading, that the part of themselves they once took for granted is slipping away. They don't tell their wives, they don't tell their sons, but deep down, they wonder if they're disappearing piece by piece. My name is Dr. John E. Morley, a physician who has spent more than 35 years helping men over 60 protect their health, their confidence, and their independence. And today, I want to give you the truth most doctors never share. In this video, I'll reveal the 4 very real health consequences that occur when you stop masturbating in older age, and how to prevent them before they rob you of your vitality. The last one is the most dangerous of all, and I urge you to stay with me until the very end, because most men never hear it until it's too late. Before we dive in, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another honest, science-based health insight designed specifically for men over 60. And if this message resonates with you, type 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, type 0. Your feedback helps me make these videos even more helpful for you. Alright, let's get straight to it. Starting with the first and perhaps most overlooked consequence of giving up self-pleasure after 60, the gradual loss of sexual function. It's something your body once maintained effortlessly, but without stimulation, the decline comes faster than most men ever expect. Let me explain why. Consequence 1. Loss of sexual function. I've seen it happen more times than I can count. A man in his late 60s or early 70s walks into my office, frustrated and confused. He tells me he hasn't had a spontaneous erection in months, sometimes over a year. And what shakes him the most isn't just the loss of performance, it's the suddenness of it. "One day I felt like myself," he says, "and the next, it was like something inside me just stopped working." It catches most men off guard. Why? Because no one ever told them that giving up sexual activity, whether with a partner or with themselves, can cause sexual function to fade away like an unused muscle. Let me put this as plainly as I can. Your penis is not just an ornament. It's a functional organ, and like every functional organ, it requires regular circulation to stay healthy. When you go long stretches without any stimulation, especially after age 60, something dangerous begins to happen. Blood flow slows down. Oxygen delivery decreases. The delicate tissues begin to stiffen, not in the way you hope for, but in the way that leads to fibrosis, nerve damage, and irreversible loss of erectile capacity. That's not theory. It's basic vascular biology. Think about it this way. If you stopped moving your legs entirely for 6 months, what would happen? You'd lose muscle. You'd lose coordination. You'd lose flexibility. You might even forget how to walk. The same principle applies here. After a certain age, your sexual system doesn't just go on standby. It starts shutting down when it's not used. And the worst part? This decline doesn't come with loud warning signs. It creeps in silently. One morning you realize your natural erections are gone. Later, even physical touch or fantasy doesn't trigger the response it once did. Eventually, even medications that are supposed to help don't work as well, because the foundation has already eroded. I've had men sit across from me, tears in their eyes, asking, "Doc, can I get it back?" Some do, with aggressive therapy, lifestyle changes, and medical support. But others, they waited too long. They thought abstaining was harmless, even noble. In reality, it was the quiet beginning of functional decay. And let me be very clear, this isn't about obsession with sex. This is about protecting a vital part of your circulatory system, your hormonal balance, and your masculine identity. Maintaining occasional solo activity, even just once or twice a week, keeps the blood flowing, keeps the nerves alive, and reminds your body that this function still matters. The truth is simple. What you don't use, you start to lose. And when you're older, that loss can become permanent. I've seen this devastate men, not because they were trying to impress anyone, but because it shattered their self-esteem. It strained their relationships. It eroded their sense of being a man, and the most tragic part, it was completely preventable. One patient of mine, a retired school principal in his early 70s, came to see me after realizing he hadn't had a single natural erection in almost 2 years. He had thought abstaining was the respectable thing to do. But when the intimacy with his wife faded, he felt a growing distance in their marriage. He told me, voice cracking, "I thought I was preserving dignity. Instead, I lost myself." That conversation stayed with me, because what he and so many others didn't know is that maintaining sexual health isn't about indulgence. It's about maintenance. It's like brushing your teeth or taking a walk for your heart. It's a small habit with a massive impact. So if you've noticed your erections becoming weaker or less frequent, don't dismiss it as just getting older. It's your body's way of saying, "Don't forget about me." And while losing sexual function is usually the first sign men notice, it's not the only one. In fact, it's just the beginning. Because once circulation slows and activity stops, another system takes the hit. A system that controls not only your energy, but your very sense of who you are. Consequence 2. Hormonal crash. For many men, the changes begin quietly. They don't wake up one morning and say, "My testosterone is gone." Instead, it creeps in. A man stops feeling like himself, but he can't explain why. He's not as excited to get out of bed in the morning. He skips his walks. Food doesn't taste the same. His mood flattens. He feels more tired during the day, more irritable, more withdrawn. At first, he blames it on stress, on aging, or on poor sleep. But when we look deeper, the truth is often the same. His testosterone has crashed, not just naturally with age, but accelerated by the complete loss of sexual stimulation. Here's what most men don't realize. Masturbation is one of the few non-pharmaceutical ways older men can stimulate natural testosterone production. It's not about lust or fantasy. It's about biology. When you engage in regular arousal and release, your brain sends a signal to the hypothalamus. That signal travels to the pituitary gland, and finally, down to the testicles. Keep producing testosterone. Dopamine rises, mood stabilizes, and even at 60 or 70, your body is reminded to maintain its hormonal rhythm. But when you stop altogether, when weeks or months pass without any sexual activity, the message reverses. Your body assumes intimacy is no longer needed, so production slows. Over time, that slowdown becomes a shutdown. And once testosterone crashes, the effects ripple through nearly every system of your body. Muscles weaken. Even men who once lifted weights find it harder to maintain strength. Bones thin. Fractures become more likely. Fat accumulates, especially around the belly, where it fuels even lower testosterone levels. Focus blurs. Motivation fades, and projects that once brought pride now feel like burdens. Mood collapses. Irritability, depression, even apathy take root. Cardiovascular risk climbs. Low testosterone is linked to higher rates of heart attack and stroke. I remember a retired firefighter who sat across from me, staring at the floor. His hormone levels had dropped so far that he barely recognized himself. He told me, "Doc, I don't even know the man in the mirror anymore." His words weren't about vanity. They were about grief. He had lost not just muscle or desire, but his sense of identity. The worst part is how unnecessary this decline is. With a little education and a small respectful habit he thought was wrong, he could have preserved his energy, his drive, his connection to life. Because here's the hard truth. Once testosterone crashes in old age, it can take years of therapy and thousands of dollars in medication to rebuild, if it comes back at all. But with steady, healthy intimacy, even just a couple of times a week, you can hold the line far longer than most people believe possible. Think of testosterone like the fuel in your car. As long as the engine runs, fuel flows. But if you shut down the engine completely and leave the car in the garage for months, restarting it isn't easy. Parts corrode, systems weaken, and the cost of getting it running again skyrockets. Your body is no different. Keep it engaged, keep it moving, and it will serve you. Abandon it, and it slips away. And while hormones may be invisible, the next consequence is not. It's something you can feel physically. A heavy, nagging discomfort that builds slowly, quietly, until it disrupts your daily life. Most men never connect it to the same issue. But as a urologist, I can tell you, it often traces back to the very same decision. Consequence. 3. Prostate congestion and complications. There's a kind of discomfort most older men don't talk about. A heavy, dull ache deep in the pelvis. A strange pressure after sitting too long. The nagging need to urinate, even when the bladder isn't full. It doesn't strike suddenly like a heart attack. It builds slowly, almost invisibly, until one day it's disrupting daily life. And by the time most men mention it to their doctor, they've already been living with it for months, sometimes years. What shocks many of them is the root cause: prostate congestion. Your prostate isn't just a bystander. It's an active gland designed to produce and release fluid. That fluid is meant to move. When it doesn't, when weeks, months, or even years pass without ejaculation, it stagnates. It thickens. Pressure builds. Inflammation creeps in. That's when the symptoms start. A weaker urine stream. That constant urge to go, especially at night. Discomfort in the lower back or pelvic floor. A feeling of fullness that never quite goes away. As a urologist, I've seen countless men come in convinced they had a bladder problem, only to discover the true issue was an irritated, inflamed prostate, neglected by lack of release. The solution, in many cases, isn't another pill. It's movement. It's honoring the body's natural cleansing process through regular ejaculation. Because when that process is ignored for too long, the consequences can become severe. Some men develop chronic prostatitis, a painful long-term inflammation that resists treatment. Others end up facing invasive procedures just to feel normal again. And beyond the discomfort, there's another layer of danger. Research, including a well-known Harvard study, suggests that regular ejaculation may help lower the risk of prostate cancer. The theory is simple. When the prostate is emptied regularly, it reduces the buildup of potentially harmful substances. But when fluid is allowed to stagnate for months or years, the risk of inflammation, and eventually malignancy, rises. I once treated a man in his late 60s who hadn't had any sexual activity for nearly 2 years. I just didn't feel the need, he told me. But when his PSA levels spiked and further tests revealed significant swelling, he found himself facing biopsy discussions that might have been avoided with something as simple and natural as maintaining occasional release. Let me be clear, this isn't about indulgence or lust. It's about prevention. It's about understanding that the male body doesn't suddenly stop needing care after 60. If anything, it requires more attention than ever. Think of your prostate like the oil filter in your car. As long as oil flows and cycles, the system stays clean. But if the filter sits idle, sludge builds up, clogging the very system meant to keep the engine healthy. Eventually, the whole machine suffers. The same is true for your body. Ignore the prostate, and you invite stagnation, irritation, and long-term complications. Respect it, and you preserve not only your comfort, but your independence and quality of life. And while a congested prostate can cause pain and sleepless nights, the final consequence of stopping masturbation in older age goes even deeper. It's not just physical, it's emotional. It strikes at the core of how a man feels about himself, his worth, his connection to the world. And for many, it's the one they never see coming until it has already taken hold. Consequence. 4. Emotional numbness and loss of vitality. Of all the consequences I've seen, this one breaks my heart the most. Because it doesn't show up on blood tests. It doesn't announce itself with pain. It sneaks in quietly, stealing something far more precious than function. It steals the spark of being alive. It often begins with a simple thought: I don't really need this anymore. A man in his 60s or 70s tells himself intimacy, especially with himself, is behind him. Maybe his wife passed away. Maybe he's not dating. Maybe he believes it's just what happens with age. And so he stops. At first, nothing seems different. But over months, a subtle emptiness begins to take shape. He feels less connected to his body, less excited about the day ahead. He doesn't laugh as easily. He doesn't look in the mirror with the same quiet pride. He withdraws from conversations, avoids eye contact, and when asked how he's doing, he just shrugs. This isn't about sex, this is about vitality. You see, sexual stimulation, even solo, is one of the last remaining pathways to joy and self-recognition in older age. It triggers neurochemicals like dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, the very chemicals that regulate mood, ease anxiety, and create emotional stability. Without them, the world begins to lose color. I've spoken with men who told me, "Doc, I feel invisible." Not because their families don't love them, not because they're sick, but because they've gone months, sometimes years, without any form of intimacy. Slowly, they begin to feel unwanted, unnecessary, and disconnected from themselves. Neurologically, it makes sense. Without those chemical surges, the brain struggles to regulate mood. Anxiety rises, depression creeps in, cognitive sharpness fades, and the man who once carried himself with confidence becomes a shadow of who he used to be. One patient, a retired carpenter, told me that after giving up self-pleasure, he began to feel hollow inside. His words haunt me still. "Doc, it's like someone turned down the volume on life." What makes this so dangerous is that most men never link the emotional numbness to their decision to stop. They assume it's just aging, or loneliness, or stress. By the time they realize the connection, the damage has already begun, and reversing it requires more than hormone therapy or a prescription. It requires rebuilding a relationship with yourself. Remembering that even in old age, your body still longs to feel, to connect, to remind you that you're alive. Because here's the truth I want every man to hear. Pleasure is not a young man's privilege. It's a human need, one that persists as long as we draw breath. When you stop entirely, you don't just lose erections or testosterone. You lose a vital thread to your identity, your dignity, your humanity. That loss leaves men quieter, smaller, more invisible than they deserve to be. But it doesn't have to stay that way. I've seen men in their 70s and 80s reawaken parts of themselves they thought were gone forever, simply by honoring their body's natural needs with gentleness and consistency. And the change was not just physical. Their eyes brightened. Their voices grew stronger. They smiled again. They reconnected with their families, with life itself. That's why I say this consequence is the most tragic and the most preventable. Because every man still has the power to protect his vitality. It's never too late. So if you've ever felt that quiet fading inside you, know this: you are not broken. You are not done. The part of you that longs to feel alive is still there, waiting for you to remember it. And in the final part of this video, I'll show you exactly how to bring it all together. The simple science-backed steps to protect your sexual function, your hormones, your prostate, and your emotional well-being, so you can carry your strength, your confidence, and your independence into the years ahead. So now, you've seen the 4 hidden consequences of giving up self-pleasure in older age. The loss of sexual function, where circulation slows and tissues shut down like unused muscles. The hormonal crash, where testosterone plummets and the man you once recognized in the mirror begins to fade. The prostate congestion, where stagnation fuels inflammation, pain, and long nights running to the bathroom. And finally, the emotional numbness, the quiet erosion of joy, dignity, and connection. These aren't minor inconveniences, they're life-altering shifts. And what makes them so dangerous is that they happen silently, gradually, almost invisibly, until one day you realize years have slipped by and the damage feels permanent. But here's the truth I want you to hold on to. It doesn't have to end that way. Your body still remembers how to respond. Your brain still knows how to release the chemicals that make you feel alive. Your prostate still benefits from the natural cleansing it was designed for. And your testosterone can still be supported naturally without pills, if you send the right signals. Think of it like a garden. Neglect it, and weeds take over, soil hardens, and flowers die. But give it water, sunlight, and care, even after years of drought, and life can return. It may not look like it did at 25, but it can still thrive, still provide beauty, still bring joy. The same is true of your health after 60. You're not too old. You're not too far gone, And you're certainly not finished. That's why in these final moments, I want to bring everything together. To remind you not just of the dangers, but of the hope. The simple, science-backed steps you can take today to protect your body, restore your energy, and reawaken the spark you thought was gone. Stay with me, because this last part isn't just information. It's a message you deserve to hear. Conclusion. Let's take a moment to bring it all together. You've heard how stopping masturbation in older age can set off a chain reaction. First, the loss of sexual function, then the hormonal crash, then prostate congestion, and finally the quiet erosion of your emotional vitality. These aren't just theories, they're patterns I've seen over and over again in my clinic. But here's the part I need you to remember. You are not powerless. The decline you fear isn't inevitable. It's not just aging, it's neglect. And neglect is something you can change. Starting today. Your body is remarkable. Even after decades of wear and tear, even after years of silence, it still responds to care. It still heals. It still longs to function, to feel, to connect. I've sat with men who thought they were too far gone. Farmers who believed their strength had left them forever. Veterans who assumed their days of intimacy were behind them. Grandfathers who quietly mourned the loss of joy they couldn't even put into words. And I've watched the light return to their eyes when they realized it wasn't too late. All it took was understanding the truth, that maintaining this part of themselves wasn't childish, wasn't shameful, wasn't indulgent. It was essential. It was health. When you protect your circulation, you preserve your erections. When you support your hormones, you preserve your energy. When you care for your prostate, you preserve your comfort and your independence. And when you honor your emotional needs, you preserve your spirit, the spark that makes you feel alive, connected, and proud. This isn't about chasing youth. It's about building strength for the years ahead. It's about giving yourself permission to feel like a whole man, even in your 70s or 80s. It's about realizing that intimacy, whether with a partner or with yourself, is not something you outgrow. It's something you carry with you, a thread of vitality woven into every stage of life. So if you've been carrying guilt, shame, or doubt about this topic, I hope today lifted that weight, because you deserve freedom. You deserve confidence. You deserve the quiet pride of knowing you're still connected to your body and your life. I want you to imagine 20 years from now. Picture yourself walking, laughing, playing with your grandchildren, still feeling steady and strong. That future is not a fantasy, it's a choice. And it begins with the simple, respectful act of caring for your body today. Don't let silence steal from you what is rightfully yours. Don't let outdated beliefs rob you of your health, your joy, your identity. Because you are still here, you are still capable, and you are not done yet.